And regular exercise, good sleep, things that we're talking about, intermittent fasting, actually all trigger something called mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning the formation of new, healthy, stress-resilient mitochondria. And autophagy, in particular, like when we're intermittent fasting and exercise, we're also stimulating something called mitophagy. Mitophagy is when we break down old, damaged, what we call senescent or aged mitochondria. So in order to form new healthy mitochondria, we need space in the cell. We got to get rid of the old, not functioning, the damaged mitochondria.
What if aging isn't about slowing down, but leveling up? I'm Dr. Isaac Jones, one of the world's leading longevity doctors and someone that's invested millions of my own money into cracking the code on longevity. This is the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Join me and my co-hosts, Dr. Rudy, Dr. Ashley, as we interview the world's top doctors, scientists, and practitioners sharing the latest breakthroughs in longevity and regenerative medicine. If you're ready to optimize your health, your performance, and your longevity, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. I'm Dr. Isaac Jones, and this episode is part of our exclusive series recorded at the Exponential Longevity Summit, a global gathering of cutting-edge health experts exploring the edge of human performance, health span, and longevity. Let's get into it. Dr. Jockers, I'm so excited to have this interview with you, my friend. Thank you so much for being here for us. You are one of the top longevity experts in the space, and we're so excited to get into this topic with you today. You just so happen to be also one of my best friends, and I'm going to your house to work out on Friday. So
Absolutely.
Excited.
Absolutely.
And honestly, David and I, we talk about this stuff anyways. So you guys are going to be in on a kind of secret conversation that we have in the gym when we're working out. So
it's our normal conversation. We hang out regularly and get our families together. And so just, been doing life with Dr. Isaac Jones here now for over 20 years and, excited about everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I'm so excited about what you're up to as well. And, you're doing some amazing things, Dr. Jockers. You've got one of the top natural health podcasts out there. You've got one of the top natural health websites on the web. And you've really become an expert in fasting, in autophagy and understanding autophagy, as well as mitochondrial biogenesis, as well as how to really create deep cellular healing, which is what we're going to talk about today. And so, this is a kind of a funny story I'll share just at the beginning, in that David, he was doing this stuff in school without even knowing. I was his roommate in school. We were going through a doctorate program together, and we were roommates. And literally, he was doing some of this stuff in school without even knowing. And now we know the science, right? But you figured it out by, I guess you could call it biohacking yourself. But do you want to share anything about that before we dive in?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I kind of had to figure it out because I had irritable bowel syndrome when I was in my early 20s, and I was a personal trainer. I was eating, 6,000 calories a day, huge meal before I went to bed, big protein shake in the morning, or whatever it was that I was eating. Lots of, ultra processed foods that I thought were healthy. And actually I was living a healthier lifestyle than people around me, but it all caught up. It just overwhelmed my system. And I was not able, I started losing weight, and I was not able to maintain my muscle mass. And I had to make lifestyle, nutrition changes, lifestyle changes. And, somebody had turned me on to Dr. Mercola and his book, The No Grain Diet. And so I started taking out grains when I'm more of we called it back then the healing diet, right?
Yeah.
And so, now, then it took on a term like the paleo diet and things like that. And it was a lower carb diet, higher protein diet. And I just felt more satiated. And I would say, God really blessed me with kind of having a talent of being intuitive with what my body needs, right? I have this intelligence of being intuitive. Okay, I feel like my body needs to fast right now, or I feel like my body needs more protein right now. I need to exercise. I need to get out and move. I need more nature. And just kind of having this level of intelligence of kind of taking inventory of what am I feeling in my body? And what do I feel like can help improve my physiological state? And, that's really what we do with biohacking And that translates right into optimal performance and longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, you've really delved into this topic of autophagy. I'd love for the listener to understand, what is autophagy? Why is it so important for healing and longevity?
For sure. Well, just like the seasons, just like we have spring and fall, summer and winter, the body has different seasons it needs to be in, and kind of a, in a sense, a circadian clock.
Mm.
Just like we sleep at night, typically we should be, at least that's healthy lifestyle principles. And then we should be awake and alert during the day. The body should be going through cleansing periods and building periods where we are, in a sense, building muscle, building lean body mass, and periods where we are breaking down older damaged proteins and older damaged structures, and then basically recycling the raw materials and rebuilding. And so we should be going through a building and a cleansing cycle on a regular basis. And the main factors involved with telling the body, signaling to the body whether we are in a building phase or a cleansing phase, really are our hormones. In particular, the main hormone is called insulin. And
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's familiar with diabetes, we hear about insulin resistance is a really big factor in our society. And insulin is a superhero hormone. Its job is to take sugar or glucose out of the bloodstream and put it into the cells where it can be used for energy. When we have high blood sugar, like somebody that has insulin resistance, and they're not able, their insulin is kind of like, it's a carrier, and it's almost like a key opening the door on the cell to get the glucose in. When somebody has insulin resistance, the key is no longer working. So now glucose elevates in the bloodstream, and also insulin elevates because we are trying to pound that door open. And so when that happens, the elevated blood sugar ends up, these sugar molecules will bind to proteins in the bloodstream and create something called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. And these advanced glycation end products are like shrapnel going through our bloodstream. So they destroy the endothelial lining of the blood vessels. They damage our kidneys. They damage our nerves. So you think about somebody with uncontrolled diabetes, they don't die from the diabetes. They die from all the complications of these AGEs. They develop peripheral neuropathy,
Mm-hmm.
congestive heart failure, kidney failure. They're on dialysis. They lose their vision. They get optic neuritis. That's because these AGEs are just destroying the different systems of their body. So insulin protects us from that. And again, insulin's job is to get the glucose into the cell. The issue is, as long as insulin is elevated above a certain threshold, right? We're always going to have some level of insulin as long as, we don't have full destruction of our pancreas. We're going to
Yeah.
have some insulin in the blood. But once it jumps up above a certain threshold, it tells the body, okay, you need to store fat and burn sugar for fuel and stop recycling, stop autophagy. Autophagy is this cleansing cycle, right? Or we're breaking down old damaged proteins and recycling them. Very important. Insulin stops it. Insulin inhibits autophagy. And insulin also triggers another pathway called mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin, which is a protein signaling pathway that has to do with building, right? So again, mTOR and insulin have to do with building, dividing cells, cell reproduction, building lean body tissue. They're important for building muscle, building bone. So those are good things. But when they're chronically elevated, then we lose out on autophagy, cleansing, rebuilding, recycling damaged proteins. And so we need to cycle back and forth between building and cleansing. In our society, though, we're eating lots of ultra processed foods. We have access to food all the time. Like our ancestors didn't. They didn't have pantries, refrigerators. So they depended on a good harvest or a good hunt. And when they harvested well and they hunted well, they feasted. That boosted insulin and mTOR. But when they didn't, which was regular on a regular basis, they
They would
wouldn't have
starve.
access to food.
Or they
Yeah,
would
then they would.
fast.
That's right. They would go through that cleansing phase. They would trigger more autophagy, break down old damaged proteins, elevate human growth hormone, which helps preserve lean body tissue and gives them very good anti-aging characteristics, helps improve mitochondrial health, which, we'll come back to. So our ancestors naturally went through these cycles. In
Mhm.
our society, I mean, you and I, if I just walk into my pantry, I could live off of my pantry for the next month, right? We have unlimited access to food. We have
Yeah.
to be intentional. We have to actually think, okay, I'm going to not eat so that way my body can go through this cleansing cycle. So we have to be intentional about that. Whereas our ancestors, it was just a natural part of life.
Well, then how is it that we should be integrating this into our life? Like, what are the best strategies to kind of stimulate the natural autophagy like process in our own bodies?
For sure. Well, there's a number of things that trigger autophagy, but the number one trigger is basically when our body senses it needs more energy. It needs more, it's not getting enough fuel in a sense, right? And so when we bring insulin down, so things that bring insulin down are going to be fasting, right? A lower carbohydrate, higher protein diet. Okay. We talked about, the healing diet, right? So it tends to be a lower carbohydrate diet, real food diet. We take out the ultra processed foods, all these different ultra processed foods. When you go to the store and you're looking at crackers, potato chips, these things are made in such a way that they trigger high amounts of insulin, right? They feel good, right? And from a survival, our blueprint, our genetic blueprint desires these kinds of foods because they're going to keep us alive if we're in a famine. And humans have gone through more famines than we have periods of extended feasting, right? So now our humanity is in a period of extended feasting, right? And this is why we have such an issue with people being overweight and obese, right? We have obesity epidemic.
And you're looking, that's spreading around
Yeah,
the world, like in
it's a big
Japan,
issue.
China, Middle East.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But you go back 150 years ago, and it was only like kings and really, really wealthy. It was a very small percentage of people that were overweight. I mean, even like in countries, third world countries like for example, North Korea, it's only the government elite, right? Everybody is like super thin, famished, right? They're malnourished. And then it's only the elite that are overweight, right? Because they have unlimited access to food. So, in our society, we're just being in an extended period of feasting. And so this is a problem. It's because we're constantly eating these ultra processed foods. So we obviously need to cut out the ultra processed foods. We need to start with good nutrition, whole food, real food based nutrition. I'm not against all processed foods. For example, olive oil is a processed food, right? But it's not highly insulogenic. Okay. And so that's fine. That's a good, if it's coming from a real food source, and it's broken down in such a way that it actually can enhance bioavailability of the nutrients, I think that's a good thing. But we want to avoid, when I say ultra processed foods, you go through the middle sections of your store, you'll see them all, right? All the crackers, cookies, cereals, right? All that kind of stuff. So that's one of the first big steps. And then just reducing the amount of times that we're eating during the day, right? The average adult, unless you're a high level athlete, you don't need to eat more than 3 times a day. Right. Unless you are really, lifting working out for 2 hours a day, you're in the NBA, you're in the NFL, something along those lines. I understand you might need more, but for the average adult, 2 to 3 meals a day is great. Okay. And if you focus on protein, high protein, when you're consuming your food, I always recommend 30 to 50 grams or more in some cases of protein in a meal. And then healthy fats on top of that. Usually your healthy fats are going to come with your protein in most cases.
Just on that, like what does that look like? 30 to 40 grams of protein. Like, let's just say a breakfast with eggs, and one egg I think has 7 grams of protein, right? So that looks like maybe 3 or 4 eggs, right? Or more.
Oh, more. Yeah, exactly. So with eggs, you also have a lot of healthy fats in there too, right? So to get 30 grams with eggs, you're looking at usually 4 to 5 eggs, right? And so for some people,
is that
depending
for
on
men and women? Men
what's
and
that?
Is that for men and women, would you say?
Yeah. And so if you're under, let's say you're 125 pounds or so, you're probably fine with 25 grams of protein, 20 to 25 grams if you're a little bit on the smaller side. But, for you're 150 pounds or more, then you should definitely be looking to get 30 grams. Now, for breakfast, you don't have to get it just from eggs because eggs are also high in healthy fats, which is good, but some people don't do as well with the fats. So usually I'll tell people aim for 15 to 30 grams of healthy fats in a meal, depending on how well you digest fats. For some people, their bile ducts in their liver and gallbladder are congested, or maybe they don't have a gallbladder, so they're not able to produce as much bile. So they need to tone it down a little bit on the fat. So what they might do is something like fat-free Greek yogurt, organic Greek yogurt, which is high protein, okay? Or maybe even a protein shake where they get like some unsweetened, lighter coconut milk, right? That you can get in a carton.
We
throw
should tell
protein powder.
we should tell them what we put in our shake after.
Yeah, definitely. We could do that. And then so you might have the eggs on the side, right? 2 or 3 eggs, and then have a little extra protein. Or you could do, turkey bacon, right? Which tends to be very low in fat and higher in protein. So you kind
Yeah.
of want to figure out what your fat ratio is. I used to just tell people, just get this amount of protein and not worry about the fat. But then there were a number of people that were like, whenever I do that, I just don't feel good, right? Like I feel
Yeah.
nauseous. And that was because they couldn't handle the fat. It wasn't the protein that was
Mm,
causing the problems. It tended to be the fat. And when we reduced the fat content, they felt a lot better. And then I always
wow.
recommend getting a lot of colorful fruits and vegetables, right? So get colors in your diet. I think that's always key. And when you do that, when you get your protein right, you feel more satiated between meals. And then you're able to go longer periods of time without food. So if you do 2 to 3 meals, you stop the snacking throughout the day, and then you're able to kind of condense or basically get your meals in something like a 6 to 8 hour eating window, right? Or
Mm,
maybe 10 hours, right? Depending on the person. And depending on your schedule. And that means you're able to fast for, let's say, 14 hours overnight. So if you finish your dinner at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., you should be able to fast until 8, 9 a.m. the next morning without any issues. And when you wake up in the morning, instead of going right to food, start hydrating your body. We're all dehydrated when we first wake up. So
oh yeah.
getting some good hydration in early will not only hydrate your body and improve your energy levels and your brain function in the morning, give you more wakefulness, but also on top of that, it actually helps to fill your stomach, which suppresses your hunger hormone, ghrelin, right? When your
Mm,
stomach's empty, ghrelin gets released, signals to your hypothalamus that you're hungry. So with the water, will stretch the stomach receptors, inhibit ghrelin. You'll feel satiated. You'll feel a lot better. You'll be able to go longer without eating food. So allow for natural hunger to arise before you need to eat and fuel your body. And I think that's key. And that will give your body time to undergo that cleansing process, that autophagy process. And then if you're able to couple that with exercise, exercise is the second biggest driver. So we talked about uh, fasting or
yes.
time, another term for fasting is time restricted feeding, where we're condensing our eating window. So we're eating in, let's say, a 6 to 10 hour eating window.
Mm-hmm.
That's intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding. The second biggest driver is exercise. So getting good quality exercise. It could just be going out for a walk every day, which is great. And ideally, coupling that with something that really gets your heart rate up. Now, for some individuals, going out for a walk is enough for them, especially if you're an older individual that hasn't been training for a while. Maybe you're dealing with a chronic inflammatory condition. Walking might be exactly what you need.
Yeah.
But
I like
for
doing that in the office.
yeah,
I'm
like you're doing
walking
right now.
backwards on my treadmill.
Love it. Yep. And so, but you can also couple that. And I recommend getting resistance training in. So as you start walking, if you're not able to do it yet, start walking every single day. And then that will help reduce inflammation. We know that movement in general actually releases myokines, which are these, these immune cells, these hormone-like immune cells that come out of your muscles that suppress or reduce inflammation in your body. And so that will help reduce inflammation alone. And then that should also get your body, your fitness level up to where now you can start doing resistance training. So, doing resistance training where you're strengthening your upper body and your lower body, I recommend doing 3 to 4 days a week, and then alternating between upper body and lower body. So, one day you do upper body, the next day you do lower body while your upper body rests. And that's the
Yes.
best way to do it. And that strength training is critical for longevity. You
Mhm.
really want to build muscle for longevity. We know sarcopenia or muscle loss is one of the biggest risk factors for early mortality,
Mm,
and meaning you die early. And so, if you are fasting but not doing any sort of strength training, you're going to be losing the muscle mass. I mean, even if you're not fasting, if you're you could eat as much as you want. If you're not doing the strength training, it's going to lead to sarcopenia at some point in your life. And so
yeah.
you really need to be doing resistance training. And
You
that
know,
works really well with fasting, believe it or not, as long as
yeah,
you're refueling with the protein afterwards.
that's very interesting because one thing I've noticed about you is you've gained muscle mass since we were in school. Like you probably put on, I don't know, 10 or 20 pounds of muscle. And it's because you've integrated a lot of these learnings into your own life. And your particular schedule around exercise is that you strength train, was it every other day or pretty much every day?
Yeah. So for me, well, it depends on the season of life, right? So back when my wife and I used to work out 6, 7 days a week all the time when I was younger. And then we had twin boys and we weren't able to sleep at night, right? Or sleep became restricted. And so, if you're not recovering well, you should do less high intensity exercise. So during that season, I cut it back to 3 or 4 days a week. But I'm at a season now where I'm sleeping really well. And so I'm back to, I strength train 6 days a week, really because I enjoy it. I think you can get great results in 3 to 4 days a week. I thoroughly enjoy it. And for my brain, for my mental health, it's one of the
Yeah.
best outlets for me. Like I just feel like when I'm strength training 6 days a week, when I'm able to do that, just mentally, my mood, I'm so much more in control of my temperament, my mood. I feel like I'm a better father, husband, friend, better at everything. I'm a better businessman, better at everything in my life. And so for me, it's something I wouldn't say I enjoy the pain of strength training, but I enjoy the results, right? And the endorphins that are released are amazing for mental health. And most people don't realize this, right? But strength training is a great way to boost testosterone. And for men, typically we think about testosterone, we think about big muscles and libido, right? But I think testosterone, the biggest impact testosterone has is healthy brain, right? Healthy mood, good mood, as long as you're optimizing your testosterone, you're not overdoing it like people who are taking anabolic steroids.
Yeah.
But it's really important for mood, for creativity, mental health, optimal performance in general. So for me, that's what I do. But I don't think you need to strength training that much. I think 3 to 4 days a week, I think you can get phenomenal results, and your rest and recovery is just as important as your training. So you really want to maximize recovery too.
No, I love that. That's so good. And how does all of this impact the mitochondria, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the gut microbiome, like, because these are two
Yeah.
things that are very kind of interesting to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, huge. So mitochondria are the cell are within all the cells. They're organelles, just like we have organs in our body, like our heart is an organ. Within all the cells of our body, we have mitochondria, and they're what produce the energy in all the cells of the body. And they're in a sense, they're like the brain and the nervous system of the cell. They're actually changing their energy output based on the environmental conditions and regular exercise, good sleep, things we're talking about, intermittent fasting, actually all trigger something called mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning the formation of new, healthy, stress resilient mitochondria. And autophagy, in particular, like when we're intermittent fasting and exercise, we're also stimulating something called mitophagy. Mitophagy is when we break down old, damaged, what we call senescent or aged mitochondria. So in order to form new healthy mitochondria, we need space in the cell. We got to get rid of the old, not functioning, the damaged mitochondria. They're not functioning well. A damaged mitochondria is not able to burn fat effectively for fuel. It
Mm,
is an obligate anaerobe, meaning that it can only burn glucose and it can't use oxygen to produce energy. Okay.
wow.
Something else is like that in our body as well, cancer cells, right? And so if we build up enough of these senescent damaged mitochondria, it dramatically increases your risk of developing cancer in your
Mm,
body. I mean, it's what cancer is, a deformed cell that has not been able to undergo autophagy or apoptosis, whereas programmed cell death, right? And so we got to get rid of these bad mitochondria and we want to form new healthy mitochondria. And ultimately, the quality of our life is going to come down to the amount of high functioning, stress resilient mitochondria in our body.
wow.
And so we want to do everything we can to get rid of the bad mitochondria, right?
Yeah.
These bad mitochondria cause zombie cells, right? These old damaged cells that are just kind of sputtering around, taking up space, demanding resources, but not really offering us any good function.
And
And
even telling
so
other cells to become zombie cells.
that's right. Yeah, you got it exactly. So they're influencing just like just like you don't want your kids to be around bad influences, right? You want to remove them from, those kind of environments. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You don't want your healthy cells being around zombie cells because they can also be influenced to become zombie cells.
Yeah.
So fasting, number one trigger to get rid of these zombie cells. Number two is exercise. Okay. Now, fasting and exercise are not going to be effective though if you're not sleeping, right? So if you're sleeping 3, 4 hours a night, if if you have insomnia, if your sleep cycle is all over the place, You're not really getting quality sleep. You have sleep apnea. You're not going to get the same results as somebody who's sleeping well. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really important. I always say, you got to dial in that sleep first, right? Like I mean, obviously you can make the nutrition changes. I think that's key. Getting off ultra processed foods is going to help you sleep better, but you got to do everything you can to get good quality sleep on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And somebody who has a lot of stress resilient mitochondria, they can handle one bad night of sleep, right? Like if something happens, you're traveling, whatever it is, you have a bad night of sleep, you should be resilient enough to be able to handle that and be
Mm.
okay. Right. But if you're getting consistent bad sleep, bad sleep, bad sleep,
Yeah.
that is going to catch up with you. And so you really got to dial in the sleep and then the exercise, the intermittent fasting. Now you're going to get the results, right? When you're doing that, and you're going to feel so much better, and you're going to develop those stress resilient mitochondria. Now,
So
touch,
mitophagy is key. It's key to fast, to get good sleeps for mitophagy, which is getting rid of those senescent mitochondrial organelles in the cells, and and obviously eating healthy food will support with that as well.
yeah, super important. And one of the reasons why sleep is so key is because your body produces a lot of melatonin.
Mm.
Melatonin is an endogenous antioxidant. So not only is it a hormone your body produces to help with sleep, but it's also endogenous, meaning your body produces it and it will slip into the mitochondria. So most antioxidants that you take, they don't get into the mitochondria of the cells, but
Mhm.
melatonin naturally slips into the double membrane of the mitochondria and it helps to reduce oxidative stress in your mitochondria. And so
Wow.
oxidative stress is like rusting. So we talked about all these senescent mitochondria. The reason why we get them is because of this oxidative stress component. So the better we sleep, the more melatonin we're able to produce. Also infrared, so getting out in sun actually will help boost, even though it seems counterintuitive, it will actually help boost mitochondrial melatonin production, infrared in general. So if you can't get in the sun, get an infrared sauna or like a red infrared light box, and that will
Uh-huh.
also help boost mitochondrial melatonin, which helps protect the mitochondria so they last longer. They don't oxidize as quickly, right? It will help repair mitochondria that maybe are in the early stages of damage.
Wow.
And so again, it's all about preserving and optimizing these stress resilient mitochondria as much as possible. So
Wow.
sleep is super critical there, and that's going to help you get the results with fasting and exercise.
What
Now,
what are your
touching
top
base,
what are your top three tips real quick on sleep before you touch base on gut microbiome?
yeah, because I want to get to the microbiome, but yes, for sleep, a couple things. Number one is really make sure we have a darkness epidemic in our society, meaning our darkness deficiency epidemic, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, so our ancestors had a lot of darkness. So when the sun went down, they may have been exposed to fire, okay, which is like an orange light. That orange light does not suppress melatonin. Whereas blue light, like I've got lights on while I'm doing this interview, these blue lights and also like midday sun, a lot of blue light that suppresses melatonin, which is fine. Right now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're doing the interview. Totally fine to be exposed to blue light. But
Yeah.
when the sun goes down, I need to make sure that I am reducing all exposure to blue light. So you can get blue light blocking glasses, dim your lights in your house.
Yeah.
All of that's super key. I recommend getting at least 10 hours of time without blue light every
Mm.
single night. So that doesn't mean you have to sleep for 10 hours. If you feel like you need to, that's great. For a lot of people during their initial healing process from chronic inflammatory conditions, they need 9, 10 hours of sleep.
Wow.
But I don't need that much sleep, but I do need the darkness. And so at 8:30 at night, I usually have blue light blocking glasses on. I've dimmed all the lights in my house. Okay. And then I'm usually going to bed at 10:30 and I'm waking up at like 6:30. So from
Yes.
8:30 to 6:30, I'm not being exposed to blue light, right?
Mm.
I've got my blue light blocking glasses, which even if I have a screen, if there's TV on or whatever it is, it's changing that blue light into that orange light, like I'm being exposed to fire. So
Yeah.
that's super key. Get 10 hours of darkness. Okay. Again, doesn't mean you have to be in a pitch black room. It could
Yeah.
just be the blue light blocking glasses, dim lights. You can change your light bulbs to, the orangish kind of light. You
Yes.
can do
Yes.
candle light, lots of things like that. So that's key. Keep your room cool. Best sleeping temperature, 65 to 68 degrees. So a
Yes.
fan or air conditioning or whatever it is, nowadays they have, all different types of things. They've got sheets, or sheet covers, mattress covers, things like that, the bed jet, there's, all different types of things that will help to change the environment you're sleeping in to get that right temperature for really, really good sleep. And I wear an eye mask at night. Even though the room's dark, I find that I just sleep a lot better with an eye mask on, blocking out any sort of ambient light that could be coming in. So I think those are a couple big keys there for good sleep.
Amazing, amazing. And so yes, please do share about the mitochondria and how that,
Yeah.
or sorry, the
Yeah.
gut microbiome.
Yeah, gut microbiome. So I'll just go into fasting on the gut microbiome. There's a lot of research also on exercise that's really exciting and how it impacts the gut microbiome. But fasting, most people, most microbiome researchers, they'll tell you, hey, in order to have a healthy microbiome, you need to have a very diverse microbiome, meaning you need a lot of different species of microbes, lots of diversity, multiple different species. And when you lose that diversity, your overall metabolic health and inflammatory levels are reduced, right? So like you're more inflamed and you have less metabolic health,
Yeah.
worse metabolic health. And so in order to improve the diversity, they'll tell you eat, a whole lot of prebiotic foods, right? And that is one way to improve diversity is eat a wide range. Like a lot of people will say, go to the grocery store and get new things, right? Like one week you might do artichokes, parsley, cilantro, arugula, and onions, right? And the next week you might do, and along with fruit. And the next week you might do, asparagus, celery, right? Like all different types of vegetables, because each one of those has unique prebiotic compounds in it that can support different bacteria and create diversity. And that is one approach, but that honestly does not work for everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason why is in our society, we have a lot of people with bacterial overgrowth in their system. And when we look at the gut, there are primary feeders and secondary feeders in the microbiome. So in our gut, we have in our small intestine, we have one cell wall of small intestine all the way across, held in by tight junctions. And that's because God designed us to optimize absorption. Because again, our society, we've been exposed to periods of famine a lot more than feasting. So when food comes in, we need to maximize absorption. So that's why we only have that one cell. Now, above that cell lining, we have mucosa, right? It's called the gastro-associated lymphoid tissue. It's where 80% of our immune system is. So we need to really have a good gastric mucosa there to help protect the intestines and to help basically kill off bad stuff that's in our system and keep the microbiome in check. So the primary feeders live right above the mucosa. So right on top of the mucosa. The secondary feeders live inside of the mucosa, and they can actually eat the mucus. Okay. And one of them, one type of secondary feeder has been called the keystone bacteria in the gut. And it's called Akkermansia mucinophilia. That's a big, big word, right? But mucinophilia means mucus loving. So it actually loves to eat the mucus. Okay. So with our gut, if we're constantly eating every few hours, like most people in our society are, we actually overfeed the primary feeders.
Wow.
And when we overfeed the primary feeders, it crowds out the secondary feeders. And we don't get enough of the secondary feeders, we actually don't produce healthy mucosa, because even though the Akkermansia eats the mucosa, it actually stimulates the goblet cells in the intestines to produce more healthy mucosa. And it also will release compounds like the secondary feeders, like Akkermansia, when it eats polyphenols, right? Coming from, the different foods that we're eating, olive oil, dark chocolate, pomegranate, all these different things that have polyphenols, fruits and vegetables, basically. It creates something called urolithins. These urolithins stimulate intestinal cell mitophagy. Now, going back to that idea of mitochondrial health, right?
Yes.
They actually create healthier, stronger, more stress resilient mitochondria in the intestines, but they need to be fed well. And the only way we feed them well is by actually killing, in a sense, reducing the primary feeders, right? By reducing the primary feeders, kind of like weeding your garden, right? Or weeding your lawn. When you pull the weeds out, not only does it make the lawn look better, but it actually allows for more nutrients in the soil to get to the healthy grass or the healthy garden. Like if you're trying to grow tomatoes, you got to pull those weeds out. So now the nutrients get into the tomatoes and the onions and the things that you want to grow. An example here is like in my house, in my front yard, I've got an apple tree and I've got a blueberry bush. And every year we've got to trim back the apple tree because the branches grow quickly and it will crowd out the sun from getting to the blueberry bush,
Right.
and we won't get blueberries. So we actually have to reduce the amount of apples we could potentially harvest in order to get, a good blueberry harvest.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way it is in our gut. And intermittent fasting does that because the primary feeders need to eat, every few hours or whatever it is. And so when we reduce the amount of feedings that we're having in the course of the day, right? Instead of eating 6 times a day, we drop it down to 3 times a day. That gives time to allow to de-weed our primary feeders and allows for the secondary feeders to grow and to thrive. And now we get a more diverse microbiome with healthier gut mucosa and healthier, more stress resilient intestinal cells.
Wow. I love, dude, that is so good. Last question is like, I mean, I absolutely love what we're talking about. And as you can see, why I love David so much, he's extremely intelligent and is just, got a lot of really great things to say about this. But how do you use heat and cold to improve cellular healing response?
For sure. Well, environmental changes. So anything that, changes our environment or stresses our body that we would naturally encounter in nature actually is what we call hormetic stress, right? So our ancestors would be exposed to very cold, right, at times, during the winter season. And also when they tried to bathe, like they didn't have, a hot water shower, right? So they wanted to bathe, they got in the river and it was cold, right? It was a natural stress response. It was a stressor that they were used to encountering. And so our cells know how to adapt to that. And when we're exposed to cold for short periods of time, not extended periods of time, short cold exposure, like doing a cold shower or a cold plunge, you may have heard of cold plunging, we release these cold shock proteins. We also release high amounts of dopamine and endorphins that are great for mental health. And the cold shock proteins actually stimulate autophagy. They break down old damaged cells. They force the mitochondria. Mitochondria will produce the energy that helps create heat in our body. Wow. So they force the mitochondria to become more efficient. And they stimulate the production of more mitochondria. We call that mitochondrial biogenesis. Now, heat is the same way, right? So when we're in a lot of heat, like for example, out here, in the summertime in Georgia, July and August, like incredibly hot and humid. Okay. And I play sports with my kids. I'm outside, playing basketball or baseball. It's like I am just sweating buckets.
Yeah.
And that is actually my body temperature is getting so hot. It's stimulating heat shock proteins that break down old damaged old damaged mitochondria. Now you can also do that with infrared sauna. Infrared sauna is an amazing way to do that. It's a natural way, it's something that you can do to harness technology to get that benefit in your home. So infrared sauna, right, stimulates those heat shock proteins. Also been shown to boost growth hormone. So you get autophagy, you get growth hormone, you get better blood flow, it increases nitric oxide. The infrared increases mitochondrial melatonin production, like we talked about, to help improve overall mitochondrial health. So getting heat and getting, just short periods of heat, high heat, and short periods of very cold exposure is a stressor, hormetic stressor that can make you stronger and more resilient. Now, one caveat, if you're not sleeping well, don't start doing that. Okay. Get your sleep dialed in first, right? That's my big thing, because there's a lot of people that will try to stack all these things and yet they're not sleeping and recovering well, and they overwhelm their system. So whatever stressors you're encountering, you've got to be able to adapt effectively to them. And where you rest and recover is obviously where you're sleeping.
David Jockers, you are amazing. Absolutely amazing. All the things we just talked about today, we talked about, autophagy, mitochondrial health, the gut microbiome. We talked about, all of the ways that we can impact mitophagy as well for cellular healing. But all of these things will lead to you living a longer, healthier life, right? Maintaining healthy, lean body tissue, bringing your body through hormetic stressors, integrating some of these lifestyle solutions and dietary solutions. David, I think that if you, Dr. Jockers, if you had people integrate what you just talked about into their life, they would probably live another 10, 20 years longer, or maybe even more. But this is powerful. And because you and I are in this industry and we hear so many people talking about the next supplement or the next thing, it's like you can't really put a price on, cold shock proteins or heat shock proteins and the impact that it has right on the body. Like this is there's some real gold in here for longevity. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your genius and just your commitment to excellence. Even while I was in school with David, he would read books on the weekend when everyone else was going out and having fun. Like he just is so committed to excellence around reading research, reading books. He's always reading, 5 or 6 different books. And, the results are showing with one of the top websites in the world. Go to drjockers.com, check out his podcast. Where can they learn more information about you, David?
Yeah, drjockers.com is the best way. And my Dr. Jockers Functional Nutrition podcast. I'm on YouTube. So yeah, all of that.
Functional Nutrition Podcast is #1, guys. It is incredible. It's a hot podcast. Got to, subscribe to that. And then go check out drjockers.com. His blog is a place that I even go to get data and information because it's so well written. And there are some products there in his store that are transformative for your health and longevity. Highly recommend checking those out as well. David, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you, man. God bless you. And look forward to working out with you tomorrow.
Sounds great. Thanks so much. God bless.
All right, you too. That's fun. Thanks for listening to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Our Longevity Leaders community is on mission to transform 100 million lives by 2040. If you enjoyed this show, please share this with somebody that you know, especially another doctor or physician, but also click that follow button. Until next time, stay strong and live long.